Can the police handcuff somebody that's being detained without there being a formal arrest? Well, yep, sometimes. And no, sometimes. Now, a lot of you say, well, hell, John, I don't care whether they call it a detention or call it an arrest. If I'm in handcuffs, that is not a good day. But for police officers, it's very important to understand that distinction, because a detention is based on reasonable suspicion, but an arrest must be based on probable cause. So if you handcuff someone, it can very easily slide from a detention into an arrest, because if you remember, the definition of arrest is when a reasonable person would feel that they are no longer free to leave. So that's a very fine line where you can slide into a formal arrest, and it better be based on probable cause. But in Mueller versus Mina, Florida versus Royer, and Bailey versus US, the Supreme Court said you can handcuff someone during a detention sometimes. It is based on a case-by-case analysis, and it's only justified when the officer reasonably believes that the person is armed and dangerous. So it's not just that they say, well, I did it for officer safety. That's not good enough. You must articulate exactly why, because we are talking about a very fine line here. Now, they said you can also consider the crime that's being investigated. For example, in the Mina case, they were serving a high-risk warrant on a potential drug house where there were multiple people at the scene, and the weapons were supposed to have been used in a drive-by. And in that instance, the Supreme Court said, well, hang on, there's a lot of people out there milling around. It's okay to control those people by placing handcuffs on them for officer safety in that circumstance. But there is no bright line test. You're going to have to be able to articulate as an officer exactly why it's necessary, with the understanding that that is a very fine line, and you have to use the minimal force necessary to effectuate officer safety. So if you could call another officer out or call more officers out, if you could do something less than handcuffing someone, then that needs to be done. Hope that helps.